I chose to speak. Let me. I chose to speak on. Yeah. Can you see the slides?
Yeah, we can see it slide.
Yeah. Okay. I chose to speak on carbon dioxide capture, storage, and utilization. And this is a topic which I've been working for the last 15-20 years. Um, before I moved to NEERI as the director, then at NEERI, then later with the DST, Department of Science and Technology, and EU. So this is a very interesting topic to me, and I thought I will share what I know. Uh, what is important is uh, yeah why CO2 capture is important. The most important reason is climate change. People have looked at variation of CO2 in the last few thousands of years, but it has always been around less than 300 ppm. But of late, CO2 has increased significantly. Now, from 300, within a few decades, it has touched 412. And, and the recent uh, measurement of global average temperature is also matching.
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Sir, it is muted, sir.
Are you okay now?
Yes, sir, it is fine, sir, now, sir.
Surprising, because I unmuted before I spoke. Okay, now the let me go back to it's okay. Why I chose to speak on carbon dioxide is mainly because of the climate change. Uh, the climate has been changing the recent times, and people have been wondering what is the reason for climate change. And if you look at this graph, um, the carbon dioxide, if you look at a few tens of thousands of years, carbon dioxide concentration has been below 300 ppm. But recently, few decades, it has been going up. Now it is almost 412 ppm. And people also have measured global average temperature over the decades, and they found out that the carbon dioxide increase is corresponding to the global average temperature, and therefore they have concluded that carbon dioxide is the major reason for um, the increase in global warming. And world is now struggling to find out how to keep the carbon dioxide rise down so that temperature rise can be kept within 2 degrees Celsius. Now, if you look at global greenhouse gas, the idea of carbon dioxide was that it is one of the greenhouse gases, but there are many greenhouse gases, but 6 of them are the most prominent ones, and they were covered under Kyoto Protocol. And the one is CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, HFC, PFC, SF6. HFC means hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, and sulfur hexafluoride. But if you look at the weighted average, more than 76% of the GHG emission is carbon dioxide. Although carbon dioxide has the GWP of 1, but its emission is so huge it occupies 75%, 76% of global emission. And if you look at top emitters, China and the US are the top emitters in the world, and we happen to be fourth large emitter in the world on greenhouse gas, but that is current emission. But if you by cumulative emission, US is the leader, EU, followed by China and all that. But India doesn't figure because cumulative emission means historically from nearly about 751 to 2017. So it's more than 200 years they have calculated, and therefore we are not in the picture. But if you take current emission, we are fourth in that. China is the leader. So there's a lot of controversy that everybody is saying India and China should reduce and all that. But they are saying, look, we are developing and we should be allowed to emit. And this is the another condition plot, global GHG emission. And you can find out that these are the large emitters, and they have developed, and we are developing, and therefore we are arguing that we should be allowed to use the existing carbon space to develop. Okay. And if you look at the sectoral emissions, energy is the major emitter. If you take sectoral, GHG is emitted by all, mostly industrial activities, but also agriculture and forestry. So if you look at that, energy use dominates the GHG emission, and then followed by, so they are there, but nothing like energy. So, and energy means if you look at it, production, transport, combustion, all of them come in. So people are targeting energy and CO2. There is a Paris Agreement which said we need to act fast because global warming is becoming very large issue, and if you don't act fast, then we will reach a point of no return. That means you can't save the world. It will become too catastrophic to save. If you look at today, all rains, floods, droughts, all happen, and they are all attributed to this climate change. And basically CO2. And therefore, world is struggling. Can we at least keep the rise to 1.5, so that 1.5 degrees Celsius, so that by 2050, if we can reach that target, then we can save the world from catastrophic disasters. The IPCC, in which I was a member, it said all these things, that there will be huge floods. That's because there will be, annual rainfall cumulative will be more or less the same, but then it will happen in peaks. That means there will be downpour, which we are witnessing. Everywhere downpour is there, landslide is happening because of this. Therefore, they said we need not just reduce CO2 emission, we have to capture also, and use it or store it. So this is where this capture becomes important. And as I told you, if you take any world energy resource, fossil fuel becomes the major energy resources. You can have electricity, solar, wind, but they still do not form but a major contributor to energy. We are increasing its use, but still we are far behind. and you will find that oil, coal, gas, all these things are dominating our energy resources, and still, in spite of our best effort, coal dominates. Coal dominates. So, and fossil fuels dominate, and power generation dominates. So, where does the CO2 come from? Mainly from, if you look at the table, it is mainly coming from power generation, coal, gas, oil. So the emission, 10,000 million tons of CO2, it comes from power generation. Rest of it, cement, refineries, iron and steel, gas processing, they all contribute, but they are all much smaller compared to power. And CO2, if you look at property of CO2, CO2 is non-toxic, non-flammable, freely available in the atmosphere, but it's a major contributor to global warming. And CO2 is used as a feedstock to chemicals, to make fuels and other materials. Therefore, now scientists are looking at, can I increase the use of CO2 to make some value-added products and by novel routes, so that it can get the CO2 emission can be reduced, one. But even if you use all major chemicals to utilizing CO2, it's not going to make such a big dent in CO2 emission. Therefore, CCS has the highest potential. This is the opinion of some of the best experts in the world, including IPCC. So that's where CCS started, carbon capture and sequestration. When I say CCS, carbon capture and storage. When I say CCU, carbon capture and utilization or valorization. So the CCS became a big topic about 20-30 years ago because now scientists believe that CO2 emission is only by man-made efforts. They are responsible. It doesn't come much from nature. Like methane comes quite a lot from nature, but CO2 very little. And there are many aspects of CO2 rise which I will not talk, but I can tell you ocean acidification is one, because major sink for CO2 is ocean. And with that increase in CO2 concentration, ocean is absorbing more. In the process, it is becoming acidic because CO2 is acidic. The water is also getting warmer, so it's occluding more CO2. So there is a process of absorption and occlusion. So this is very dynamic, depending on where you are, which ocean and things like that. But still, it is trying to. If it reaches 450 ppm in the atmosphere, then people think that it's a point of inflection, which means we won't be able to stop catastrophe. So IPCC identified CCS as the major. And then India, where does India stand on CO2? Now, India also relies mostly on coal for power generation. 54% of our power plants are thermal power plants and based on coal. So we cannot suddenly shift. That's why today we have a lot of emphasis on solar, wind. We are expanding, from nowhere we have gone to 11% on solar, 10 on wind, and 12% on hydro, and still nuclear It's a small percentage, but it is going on. What is important is this coal is the major dominant energy source for India, and it will continue so because we have coal. And one of the problems with our coal is high ash content. Therefore, thermal power efficiency is rather low. Otherwise, it's abundantly available for us for next few decades and will continue. But there is a lot of pressure on India to reduce its carbon footprint, and therefore we think that we need to do something about CCS to decarbonize in the Indian economy. Decarbonize means for economy to grow, you will require power. When you need power and you use coal, it becomes too much dependent on carbon dioxide. So the economic growth will be proportional to CO2 emission. So to decarbonize means we need to reduce CO2 carbon coal dependency for our economic growth. That's what we mean by decarbonizing economy. So carbon capture. What are the options available for carbon capture? Direct air capture. You can capture from air because air contains 412 ppm of carbon dioxide. You can capture by air using certain adsorption material, adsorbent. But then you have to, once you have adsorbed it, you have to desorb it. So you have to use some thermal energy desorb. So is it carbon negative? When I say I want to explain what is carbon negative, because you are going to capture 1 kilogram of CO2. To release this CO2, if you have to again use something which will generate 1 kilogram of CO2, your net CO2 captured is 0. Because you have captured 1 kg, but to desorb it, you have released 1 kilogram of CO2. That means what captured is useless. So carbon negative means I should be able to capture 1 kilogram of CO2 and desorb it, and the net, it should be less than 1 kilogram. So ideally, it should be much less than 1 kilogram, so that I capture and avoid emission, mitigate emission. And this adsorption, sometimes, in many times, it doesn't happen. But if you have to capture and use it, then it may have some additional benefits. Like I'm using CO2 for other purposes to make chemicals or other uses which I will talk, then it decreases the additional CO2 generation. Therefore, it can become carbon neutral or carbon negative. But I can tell you, nowhere in the world so far, carbon capture has been carbon negative, except 1 or 2, I will explain later. And it is very expensive. So you're not going to get this done without spending money. So you can direct capture, then you can capture using forestry, because trees capture CO2 photosynthesis, but you cannot have trees all over the world, then you won't have place to live. So it has its own limited use of forestation. But other means are there which I will explain. So afforestation is one. It is one of the cheapest ways of carbon capture. But as I said, if you want to capture all CO2, then you need space to have forests, because the Earth's surface will not be adequate to capture all CO2 we are emitting. So there will be no place for us to live or have industries. So that's not a solution, but then it is one of the solutions. So India is one of the countries like Brazil with a lot of forestry, so we are still improving. Are you able to hear me properly? Okay, I'm continuing because I'm not. Can you raise your hand if you're hearing properly? Anybody can raise hand. Hello. Yeah. Second thing is, yeah, okay. The second thing is you can stop me if you have to. If you can raise your questions on chat mode, so I will check whether there is any question. Otherwise, I will continue and we can have a session at the end if possible, time permits. There are many CCS schemes in the world, and you can capture CO2, you can use it for to make it, or you can store it under the ocean, or you can store it in aquifers, geological storage. You can store it in coal seams or oil fields, or you can use it for enhanced oil recovery, which I will talk. Yeah, what is meant by carbon capture? It has. So this is the plant generating CO2. So I can capture this using one of the techniques which we will discuss. Then once you capture it, then you have to transport it via pipeline, or if it is in the ship, it will go through ship. So either you transport to ship or pipeline, but then this happens because you need pressure, so you need to compress it, then ship it. Usually if you're shipping in cylinders, it can be just 720 bar, 7 megapascals. But if you are then from here, if you want to inject, it has to be under 100 to 150 millibar. 150 bar. So it's a very high pressure. What is the critical temperature of CO2? Critical temperature of CO2 is 32.2 degrees Celsius. So that means most of the time it is under supercritical condition. And when you compress it, it's under supercritical, and you need to send it to ground, which is probably much higher temperature than your atmospheric conditions. Then if you're sequestering, it can be anywhere at the depth of 0.8 kilometers to 3 kilometers. And if you're utilizing, then you can utilize it on the surface. So there is no need to do all this expensive process. So utilization becomes very important because it's an economical, but it doesn't solve the CO2 capture, CO2 mitigation, because utilization can form only a small part of mitigation strategy. So there are two ways of looking at the CCS: geological and offshore. Geological is, you can send it to in a terrestrial mode. You capture it from the plant and then you send it to different level, either to saline formation, very deep saline formation, or injects to a enhanced coal bed methane, which means that is at a reasonable level. Your coal seams are here too, and you inject CO2, and then CO2 gets adsorbed and methane gets desorbed. So you get enhanced recovery from coal bed methane recovery. So we call it enhanced coal bed methane recovery. Then you have for CO2 for oil recovery. When you have oil wells and some oil gets trapped in pores. If you're a chemical engineer, you understand that pores retain, and you cannot. You have to apply a lot of vacuum to extract oil from pores, and that is a very expensive process. Generally, it is done by injecting water or nitrogen to push the carbon oil trapped in coal. Now, having said that, these are very difficult process and it doesn't recover it. In spite of that, they still use nitrogen gas to get secondary oil. But still some part of oil is there. So you use CO2, and CO2, gets not only gets absorbed, but it also dissolves oil and then reduces viscosity, and that can be taken out as additional oil recovery. The third is ocean storage, which is shown here. That is, put it into deep ocean. Now, it can go into 3 kilometers depth, because ocean has, it can be 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer depth. But when you go below ocean, then you can inject it. So it's called geological sequestration, but offshore. That means into deep oceans. So these are being practiced, but there are still pros and cons of it. So this is geological storage, which I mentioned. You have oil shale, so you can capture CO2, pump it, and then you can get either enhanced methane or oil, and these things are have been practiced for quite some time, and there are now quite a few studies being made. And we in India, we are mostly concentrating on oil recovery and coal bed methane recovery. But I can tell you, in India, one of the major problems is the concern that these things can have certain geological instability, and like we have protests on nuclear and things like that. So there are activists who are not happy with any activity, subterranean activities, saying that this is going to upset the geological terrains, and it can result in a catastrophe or degrade land, deplete water resources. There are certain truths to some of these, but not all. So, because traditionally they use high pressure water to get this coal bed methane or enhanced oil, but that results in a lot of water usage and pollution. But in CO2 that doesn't happen. But people still don't believe that CO2 is a free thing, and you get into a lot of controversies on topics like CCO, enhanced oil recovery, enhanced gas recovery. You have a lot of benefits because these are all co-benefits. And remember, when you send CO2, if I send 100 kilograms, it doesn't mean all 100 kilograms will come out with oil. So even 25 to 50% of that CO2 gets trapped here. That means you are also performing storage while recovering useful fossil fuel. So the CCU also, we generally say CCUS. That means carbon capture, utilization and storage. So that is because some CO2 gets stored here, about 25 to 50% of what you send. Then some additional fossil fuel gets recovered. So this is oil recovery. This is what is explaining you because oil is in a reasonable rate. Yeah. Did you say something? Yeah. Okay, so this is 1 kilometer depth, and you get oil recovery. Okay. Now, when I say utilization, then capture comes in a different way. In chemical engineering terms, capture comes in different way. I can capture CO2 post combustion. That means I burn for some use, produce power and heat, I capture CO2. And then I can compress that CO2 for some use. Or pre-combustion. Pre-combustion means I use CO2 fuel and use reformer because that contains utilizes CO2. Then I produce power. So it's a kind of utilization, indirect utilization of CO2. And there are IGCC, integrated gas and power generation. So you get CO2 capture, power, chemicals, everything coming in one shot. So ultimately CO2 can be compressed and used. And oxy-fuel is different in the sense we can burn any fossil fuel instead of using air. Air has only 29% oxygen. If I separate air using air separation and then produce more or less pure oxygen, use that pure oxygen to burn fuel, then I get high concentration of CO2. Here I may get 12% with coal or 4% with methane or natural gas, whereas if I use pure oxygen, which I get by very expensive process of air separation because it is air liquefaction, and then I get oxygen, I burn coal or gas or whatever it is, then there is no nitrogen in that stream. I get pure CO2, then very rich CO2. So then it becomes easy for me to capture and compress. The industrial processes, you get CO2 in industrial processes like cement and power station and things like that. So this is, and I told you, thermal power station has the best option, single source, because as I told you, power contributes to the maximum for CO2 emission. And everywhere you will find power stations. They are large. Depending on the purity of the coal, you get high concentration of CO2. So we call single point source. That means you can go to industrial point and get CO2 without any difficulty. The only problem is it may contain some salts because it can have sulfur, but Indian coal has much lower sulfur. But if you import coal from Australia, they have much higher sulfur, so you will have higher. So that then NOx, then particulates, because particulates means the ash contents, and Indian coal contains much higher ash in spite of the fact you capture ash, but still if you take flue gas, it contains quite a lot of ash. Ash, all these things can come in the way on capture. Now let's see. And what do I do? I told you one method is direct air capture, which I will explain very soon. Post combustion, this is what most common. Then pre-combustion, like oxy-fuel, oxy-combustion. Then we have chemical looping. That's a chemical engineering technique which we use using metal oxides. And you can take the flue gas, capture it, separate it, and the CO2 lean gases can be left out, and then you use CO2 for sequestration or use. What all you can make with CO2? You know, you would be surprised. You can make loads of items using CO2. It's been used even today. For instance, we are using carbonated beverage. If you're buying Coke and this and that, soda, that uses CO2, but that requires food grade CO2. You can't just capture from flue gas and put it. Then this for extraction of flavors and caffeine, you need again food grade supercritical CO2, very pure, like chili extract is known to be made using even rose, chili, all these things are done using supercritical extraction. You can make sodium carbonate, bicarbonate using CO2, which we do now. If you are making urea, it's one of the major raw materials is CO2. Methanol you can make, so you get fertilizers. CO2 is used in refrigeration, particularly on supercritical cycle. Now, with all these issues on global warming and ozone layer depletion, CO2 as a refrigerant is increasing, but its use as a quantity is much lower, but it's still used. Then you have a fire suppression, because earlier we were using brominated compounds like freons. Now all these things are avoided, so we use CO2 because CO2 is a very good fire suppressant. You can make polycarbonate and polymers using CO2, and we discussed about enhanced fuel recovery. You can also capture biological conversion. We call it algal process, and that is capturing CO2. I'll be mentioning that. So there's a lot of activities around the world looking for CO2, formic acid, methanol, chemical production, sodium bicarbonate. So you can make organic chemicals, inorganic chemicals, use it as a solvent, and it's a very inert, because it's very safe, except that most of the applications is by supercritical. Even in a refrigeration cycle, people are using CO2 in car cooling or truck cooling, and that pressure is about 120 bar. You can imagine. Usually, currently a truck air conditioner will not operate beyond 25 bar. Now you need very high pressure system, but the tube is thick walled tube, so it's not an issue. But still the pressure is 120 to 140 bar. So on one side we are talking about CCS, the other side we are saying we should be talking about the valorization. Yeah. So there is a huge activity going on, including India, on valorization. We are not much into capture and storage, but we are doing a lot on valorization, including DST. I was the chairman of the committee for CCU in India for 3 years, and we introduced a lot of new projects on CO2 utilization. See, one such thing is you can use CO2 to make methane. That means CO2 to C1 chemistry. It's called CO2 to C1. Now, this is a fairly well established. Now people are talking about higher alkane series. You not just C1, C3, C4. So DST has sponsored a project in which I am a monitoring committee member. We are now trying to push for higher, C4, butane, propane, butane kind of things. So you have a higher value. And these projects are going on, and they are mostly catalytic processes. But this, you can do this by biochemical process also, microbial conversion of CO2 to methane. But most of the processes are catalytic processes. There are projects with electrochemical reduction of CO2 to hydrogen, and hydrogen is touted as one of the future fuels. Therefore, we are looking at electrochemical reduction of CO2. What are the various options of capture in chemical engineering? All these things involve unit processes: absorption, adsorption, chilled ammonia absorption, mineral carbonization, chemical looping, membrane separation, biological, agroforestry. We have discussed agroforestry. I will not touch much about agroforestry. I will quickly go through various options. Absorption, CO2 absorption by methylethylamine has been going on for decades in fertilizer industry, in the urea production. CO2 is the raw material. And when you convert CO2, unconverted CO2 is captured, absorbed by chemisorption using alcohol MEA. And MEA is a solvent which is very popular. So in any demonstration project today for sequestration, geological sequestration, they straight away use MEA to absorb, capture, and then store it. But there are many disadvantages with MEA. It's a very well established. If you want to capture immediately without difficulty, I will go for MEA. But it is not carbon negative. It also has certain issues with impurities in oxygen. It can cause corrosion and solvent degradation. MEA gets degraded with even moisture is an issue with MEA. Particulates will interfere. Then SO2 will react with MEA. Therefore, you will have to take care of SO2. First, you have to clean SO2. You have to clean the flue gas, remove all particulates, and remove moisture before you use amines to capture from flue gas. Major problem is MEA gets degraded, so that means you have to regenerate MEA and make up MEA in a cycle, because it's not that you capture, and you also have to regenerate it requires a fairly high regeneration capacity, but it has a high absorption capacity. That means I can absorb a lot of CO2 using 1 kilogram of MEA, but it requires reasonably high desorption energy. So it's a problem. And if the concentration goes down, it becomes more problem. Like, we have a direct carbon capture, means it's a problem. In a power plant, 12 to 14%, it may be attractive. And then there are processes for electrochemical regeneration of CO2 that will make process energy-wise attractive, because carbon dioxide rich stream, amine stream, can be regenerated using electrochemical process. Then you reuse the amine solution for carbon capture. These are being explored, but it's not commercial yet. But usually they regenerate by using the thermal desorption. And absorption is still the best option available. You know, in unit operation for carbon capture, absorption is the best option available, and amines are the most popular. But as I said, MEA has only one NH2, so it is a problem, and its kinetics is very fast. It can absorb very quickly, but you have the problem of one NH2. It's a carbamate reaction between CO2 and NH2. So now people are trying to avoid monoethanolamine to the secondary amines, tertiary amines, and hindered amines. That means you have, when you go to secondary amines, it has 2 NH2, 2 arms. If you go to tertiary, it has 3 arms to capture CO2. In multiple hindered amines, you get multiple arms. So that means you can sequester, capture much more CO2 per kilogram of solvent. But their kinetics is not as fast as monoethanolamine, MEA. So you have a problem. On one side, it is very cheap, extremely well known process, MEA monoethanolamine, but these are not very well known, but they have a high capacity. So people are trying to mix these things, primary, secondary, and tertiary, and make proprietary amine solutions so that you have a compromise of kinetics versus capacity. Can I increase the absorption? Can I increase the capacity? Can I decrease the regeneration efficient energy? So you have compromises between all these things. So people are making proprietary solvents. And then people are also trying to use activators like, promoters like potassium carbonate, piperazine, sodium glycinate. All these things are being used as activators, so that using any of primary and secondary amines, it increases the absorption rate. Then there are a lot of commercial vendors. You can buy lots of new solvents besides MEA, and most of them are based on amine solutions, but not necessarily MEA. MEA is one of the key components. This is a very interesting thing, because you have carbonic anhydrous. When you inhale oxygen, you convert that into CO2 in the body. Then carbonic anhydrase in the body, it's an enzyme. It carries CO2, and that's how you exhale CO2. So the carbonic anhydrase is a very good carrier. It facilitates absorption of CO2 in the bloodstream, and then you get it out very quickly. So similarly, people are trying to mimic this bloodstream technique using carbonic anhydrase, particularly in absorption systems. So you have carbonic anhydrase as an activator on an adsorbent like zeolite. Then zeolite, it makes the CO2 into the pores passage very easy. Then you are able to capture CO2 much more quickly. So it increases the adsorption capacity. People are looking at ionic liquids. There are proprietary ionic liquids available. Now, ionic liquids are like PF6 and PF4. They are being used now for selective carbon dioxide capture. It's pretty high, but it's not chemisorption. It is by, but there are some ionic liquids for either physisorption or chemisorption. Ionic liquids are non-flammable, highly stable, but it's expensive. So recycling ionic liquid is an issue, and they are also sensitive to certain component like SOx. So you need to separate, make sure that SO2 is not there in the flue gas if you are using ionic liquids. But it's still in R&D, no commercial use. Adsorption is very much in commercial use because we use adsorption in many techniques like pressure swing. You can use adsorption material adsorbent in either in pressure swing or temperature swing or electrical swing, electric swing. It's still not attractive because you need a lot of energy and capacity to absorb is pretty low in spite of a lot of developments in the adsorbent. And as I told you, I keep on saying absorption is the most popular, but next to that is adsorption. And there are some commercial units available now. I'll show you one such unit. Zeolite and surface modified zeolites, metal organic frameworks. These are all used for in the adsorption techniques. One of the problems for metal organic framework is moisture, because the moment you have moisture, there's sometimes metal organic framework, they collapse. So you have to make sure that flue gas is free from moisture. And this is an interesting, it's a commercial plant, direct air capture. That means you are capturing CO2 from air. I don't need to worry where I'm locating plant, because in other capture you have to locate my capture plant next to a thermal power station so that it can be captured from flue gas. Here I can locate anywhere in the world and make. And this is direct air capture using potassium carbonate, KOH, potassium hydroxide. KOH is a base and it absorbs to make potassium carbonate. Then potassium carbonate is regenerated using lime, and that lime regeneration is done in a pellet reactor. Then you get KOH. So this reaction of K2CO3 with the calcium hydroxide results in the KOH that is recycled. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it is recycled, and then calcium carbonate can be regenerated, and you get calcium hydroxide. So there are two loops in this, and this plant is operating. It's a large plant, direct captured by this carbon engineering company. There are people are when in solvent in a solid absorption, people are using trees. Carbon captured trees. That means I can plant trees with solid absorbent coated on the leaves, so-called artificial leaves, and they capture CO2 from air. Then once it is saturated, I can use the electrochemical desorption. I supply some heat, low voltage to the tree. The leaves get heated, and I can take the desorbate. So these techniques are being used in some places, but they are not still economical. As I told you, metal organic framework is a very good in terms of capacity because it has a very high surface area, like a football ground in a small MOF. But then there are certain issues related to impurities, but there are very good developments. People are saying I can desorb using sunlight. which is a very great thing. I don't need to supply heat. Just use the adsorbed MOF in sun, it can desorb. So that means I have to capture that, but you can use it in a cage and then desorb it. Functionalized adsorbents are there, I told you, and we use even amines to functionalize zeolites, and then use carbonic anhydrase to further enhance your formation of carbon capture. You can separate CO2 from by membrane, and these are being tried even in India. You use membrane to separate CO2 from flue gas, but it has to be free from particulates because otherwise membrane gets clogged. There are many membranes available, ceramic, polymeric membrane, most popular, but then you also have ceramic membranes and liquid supported membranes and all the molecular sieves. There are many membranes, even proprietary membranes are available. This is a BHEL. They try to develop a membrane to capture CO2. This is a membrane contactor. You have a, membrane is also treated with amines, so it captures CO2 and then you separate it and then desorb it. And so the cycle goes on. So there are ways of dealing with membrane as a separator, like we do in water, or you use as a membrane reactor to get to capture CO2. This is another interesting clathrate hydrate formation, which is like a gas hydrate and methane capture. You use, gas hydrate formation is a gas mixture. You mix it with water and CO2 and nitrogen. That the gas hydrate hydrogen forms a cage around CO2, and then this is in methane gas hydrate. Water forms a cage for methane. Likewise, we can make clathrate, which forms a cage around CO2. So you get clathrate, and then when you heat it, CO2 comes out. And this technique is being tried. This is a proprietary gas hydrate formation for post combustion. They use tetrahydrofuran as a promoter, and they use. So you have a first stage gas station. You get, CO2 is captured. Then you get CO2 rich stream. You do second stage. It gets further enriched. You get third stage. You get, when you desorb, you get very pure CO2. So 94% CO2 can be there. Then CO2 lead stream can be separated by its membrane. This process goes on. Mineral carbonation is a natural process which occurs in ocean, but it happens after it's a very slow process. Kinetics is extremely slow. You have a metal oxide and you get CO2 dissolved in ocean, so you get metal carbonate, and that's how you get stones, pearls. In all the minerals in the sea, all these things are formed. Rocks are formed in the seabed, very high pressure and low temperature, and carbon dioxide dissolved there. Can we mimic that? And people are trying to mimic this in. It's a very difficult process, but it is being pursued using. But we can sequester CO2 using waste minerals. Like if I have a red mud from aluminum process, that's very basic. It has a lot of NaOH in the red mud. So you can use that waste material to capture CO2. So capturing CO2 using mineralization of red mud is one such technique. You can use blast furnace slag. All these things have a capacity to absorb, react and form minerals are being tried. And even cement is being tried. Now people are trying to promote cement as a carbon capture. That means because if you have cement which has a slow process of curing, then it keeps on capturing CO2. Then cement matrix, when it is finally cured, it would have captured and retained. It will retain CO2. Capturing means it's not just, it will retain. It won't dissolve because it's captured and So this is another. People are looking at cement as a carbon capture material. I told you about pre-combustion and post-combustion. When you have a air separation and then combust it, then you call it pre-combustion. You get very pure. You need oxygen, pure oxygen to do pre-combustion capture. Post-combustion is what we are mostly talking about. It is very popular. Now, oxy-firing is pre-combustion. That means I use air separation unit, produce pure oxygen, burn fuel, and then produce water. And you can use that even at cat cracking. That means you use pure oxygen instead of, then you get very high percentage of CO2 for capture. These are the techniques when you are looking for single point source. Now you get 95% capture. Because I told you, power plants will produce only 12% maximum. Some of them can give you 14%, but now in these you get about 95% CO2, so you can capture CO2 much more easily. Chemical looping is an interesting concept which is very similar to what you do in your chemical engineering processes. I use some metal oxide in an air reactor, and that metal oxide is oxidized. Then I use fuel reactor. In that I burn fuel, including coal, but oxygen for that is released by metal oxide, and that metal oxide supplying oxygen gets reduced. Then it goes back to air reactor. So I can take a Fe2O3 here, I oxidize to Fe3O4, use it in fuel reactor, burn carbon, then it gets reduced to Fe2O3, recycled to air reactor. This process is known as chemical looping technology. And this similarly you can use it for reformers also, because you are getting CO2 and then you can supply oxygen, so you get reformation taking place in the loop reactor. But the simple technique is you use metal oxide to supply oxygen. They have put some pilot plants on this, but all these things are being in R&D stages. Algal process is one of the best. You capture CO2 by algae, and the beauty of this algal process is that you can capture CO2 and produce biomass. If you choose appropriate conditions and the algal culture, you can produce biomass with high lipid content. You can dry this and use it as a fuel. So that means it has multiple benefits. You are capturing CO2, you are producing biomass, which can be used for many uses, including nutraceuticals and all that. And it can also be used as a fuel. And there are many ways of pathways for capture, but I will show you one where people have used this. I will go to, yeah. This is a very interesting process which is being done in Kadalur, Nelikupam, where the distillery effluent, because for biomass you need water which has certain nutrients. So distillery effluent has a lot of nutrient in it, and otherwise you have to treat it using standard techniques. But now I can use it to capture CO2 produce biomass and then use it as a fuel. And we do this in what is known as raceway pond. And a raceway pond, it is just a zigzag path, and first you mix your exhaust, the distillery effluent with CO2, and then introduce into the pond. Because of the photochemical reaction, biomass grows, then you harvest the biomass. So you can see that the biomass is harvested. So it has a multiple benefits. I told you, you're capturing CO2, you're producing biomass. If you do it properly, you can produce fuel. These are being done commercially now. In fact, we are trying to have one plant. There are 2-3 groups in Tamil Nadu itself, including the industrial EAD Parry demonstration unit, and I'm involved in one of them. So this is a very interesting. I feel this is the best in terms of carbon capture sequestration because of the co-benefits. The capture is very important. I'm coming to the end. Almost, but I'm only going to talk about capture global. What are the global activities on capture? You can capture it. You have to transport this by trucks or ships or pipelines. Then you can either store it or use it for some enhanced recovery or use it for some chemical thing. And if you look at cost, if the concentration of CO2 is low, then your capture is, the concentration of CO2 is high, your capture cost is very low because you have a readily available there. So it's important that you look for a point source with a very high. So for instance, thermal power station, it has 12. But if you go to natural, it has only 4%. If you go to air, direct air, it's only 0.04%. So the cost will go up as the concentration goes down. So it's important that the higher the concentration of CO2 in the gas stream, the lower the capture cost. So the people have done a lot of simulation calculations for that. See, this is compression. You can't just capture it, you have to compress it. And then people are spending huge money. They were spending huge money to compress it. Just look at this cost. It's about $100 per ton of CO2. Now people have come, learned quite a lot on the learning curve. Now the cost has been brought down to some $40, $45 per ton of. But even now there are units operating with much higher value. So capture is one, then transport compression is second. Then the chain, if you look at the chain, you have a compression dehydration because you have to treat the flue gas before you send it for capture. So there is a cost there, which is in the range of given here per dollar per ton. Then you have a transportation pipeline, which is one of the highest. Transportation is one of the highest cost involved. Then you have ship transport is not high because the pressure is only about 20 bar, whereas here pipeline. Then you have injection and storage, which you have to do it at a very high pressure, and you have to compress it and inject it. So that is another major cost. The monitoring and verification. By international rule, you cannot just put it in underground and say that I've done it. No, there is a possibility of CO2 leaking. Therefore, you have to continue to monitor for 30 years. That's a rule now. So that puts some cost on it, but that's not a big cost. This is a global map of what is happening around the world, how much CO2 is being captured and stored, and potential. This map is for potential. How much potential we have in the world to capture and store. But you will find that most of the potentials are in the Northern America and China, and a little bit on Australia and Europe. But we have much lower potential, and there are certain countries where we have no data. So, but globally there's a lot of potential. But if I have to capture here and send it to China, I'll have political problem. If I have to capture and send it to Canada, transportation cost itself will kill it. So the potential is important for capture and sequester. Otherwise, just capture is not important. Large-scale CCS project. There are many projects around the world on capture and storage. But you will find that not much is happening in India because we are not still moving in the storage area because of political reasons. And what are the activities around the world? These are interesting. You know, you can make natural gas processing, ethanol production, chemical production, hydrogen production, power generation. Power generation is the major activity for capture. And people are, and this, the circle means bigger the circle is the bigger project. And similarly, bigger the circle, bigger is the project. These are happening in the US is one of the major, this is US. The major player, he started doing it, they started doing it much before 2000. And China entered late. So now by 2015 onwards, they are in the game. And now they are going very aggressively. And whereas we have no such activity, I told you, Europe is also aggressive. They have put a lot of, but Europe, particularly Northern Europe, like Scandinavian countries, because of their oil activities, they're very, very aggressive on enhanced oil recovery, enhanced gas recovery, and things like that. The lot of things are happening in the world. CO2 capture and injection, but we are only now interested in. There are private players in the game, introducing proprietary amines for selling it. So if you want, in India now, Chennai, Tuticorin has a power post-combustion project that uses a proprietary solvent to capture. Tuticorin alkali and chemical fertilizer has a plant, and that uses one such proprietary solvent for post-combustion, but they use it for making sodium bicarbonate. So there are many plants with, this thing. All these things use mostly amine-based solvents. Canada is very active. They have some of the largest plant, world first post-combustion capture. Largest plant was put up in Saska Power in Boundary, which is known as Boundary Dam project. The same company is doing it in 3 places, and they're all post-combustion projects. And there are also many such projects in Canada. We have mostly enhanced oil recovery, biological sequestration, but very, very little on geological sequestration. Although we are studying, but geological sequestration is mainly related to oil recovery. IIT Bombay is one of the centers for geological, ONGC, Reliance, they're all looking at enhanced oil recovery, enhanced gas recovery. There are many projects, Indian Oil, but I don't get much open data. Although I am involved in national committees, they don't. Reliance, Indian Oil, they keep it to themselves, so we don't know what's the level of yes. Yeah. So I have already discussed this on methane recovery. I don't want to repeat. It is just by pressure and dissolution you replace methane and get the methane out. Oil is the by dissolving, you reduce the viscosity and make this uh, oil to come out of the pores. These are all techniques used, and you can read quite a lot now. In future, when you read in oil, petroleum technology, you will have to learn more about using CO2 for better enhanced oil recovery. Yeah, I want to come to the last part of it. Now, in terms of cost, how expensive they are. They are very expensive. We have seen the cost for recovery, capture first, and then transport, and then sequestration. All of them cost money. But if you take oil recovery, then you can benefit because you are getting more benefit than cost can be. Now people are targeting something like $30 to $50 per ton, which is pretty tough target. Even in India, we are targeting for utilization $30 a ton. But if you get $50, you have done very well. $50 a ton, you have done very well. There are demonstration projects in Europe, offshore demonstration, because offshore also has a lot of potential. Besides land, which I showed earlier, these are all where you can store CO2 in the sea, and it's a huge potential. But then there are global issues. Can I store close to Sri Lanka? Can I store close to Maldives? These questions will come. So you have to, nuclear waste dumping. There are issues on carbon dioxide also. And Europe, there are many projects around Europe, so there are issues. I am involved in European review projects on CCU. There are issues on Norway, etc. And we made a study. These are the major CO2 potentials, emitters, mostly from power stations in India, and they can be captured, but still where it can be used, where it can be sequestered, it's quite an issue. If you can do it within 20 kilometers, you can make it a little bit attractive. But sometimes it's far away in 100 kilometers between source and the sink. Where you capture and where you want to sequester, these are being studied today by DST projects, and mostly in Gujarat there are a lot of potential for CCS. There are few projects, like I told you, Nelikuppam project for algal process. Then NALCO has a algal process thermal power plant, which I visited. Then NTPC has a huge project in Talcher. All these projects are happening in India. There is also a lot of research project being sponsored. I encourage you to look at DST website to see where they are sponsoring. Most of them are materials, but we are now slowing down on material. We want to move more into valorization. And valorization becomes more, and it's very difficult for universities to do EOR and see, but you can study the conditions, properties of oil at high pressure in presence of CO2. Similarly, coal seam and pore definitions and methane resolution, you can do that. The source sink is the major problem, and even industrial partners, they are not coming in. And DST is saying that if you get industrial partners, then you have a potential to do some projects, but still it is an issue to get industrial partners collaborating with IITs and universities, colleges. The CCS is going to be key for climate change mitigation. It has to be carbon negative, but still we have a long way to go. We have very little activity on CCS, but we have a lot of activity in India on CCUS. DST is funding it. I wish you will be enthused after my lecture to go to DST for funding. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The participants are now welcome to ask questions, and he'd be willing to answer your question.
Any question you have? I know it's a tough this thing, but then you should. Oh.
Hello, sir.
There are people from chemical engineering and oil, isn't it? Petroleum. They should have. Yeah, somebody has raised hand. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think maybe they are muted. Maybe
No, but yeah, maybe
Yes,
they. Yeah.
yeah, please.
Aishwarya.
No, Mubarak Ali.
Mubarak Ali. Okay.
Mubarak Ali.
Dr. Mubarak Ali. Yeah.
Can speak a little louder, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's okay.
No, still you have to speak louder.
Yes. So thank you for your presentation, sir. It's really actually, my research is on.
Sir, you have to speak a little louder. We can't hear. Maybe you have to hold your mic closer.
I'm working on microalgal based CO2 capture.
Yeah.
So the recent studies are with the microalgae that are mitigating the CO2 in suburban and rural pollution. So what is the status of in India about and then implementing the CO2 sequestration using microalgae?
There are many projects in India. In Chennai itself, there are 3. There are many. There are experts, and they are implementing on mainly using wastewater. You can use wastewater, and you to capture. There are many CSIR labs. There are many IITs. Microalgae is a very popular topic for capture in India because it has, you can do it in small scale, but using photobioreactor in a vertical column is not feasible. You have to use raceway pond.
Yeah.
And these are going on. There are large scale plants. I told you thermal power station in Talcher has a huge plant they were making, but Talcher plant is closed now. But till they were closed, they were making biomass and selling it. Because biomass you produce can be soil amendment or fuel or nutraceutical depending on what you make, or even high lipid content, you can use it as a fuel. Yeah.
So presently I have a 2000 liter capacity of raceway pond. So working on to make a pilot scale study. I have a 2000 liters of raceway ponds.
Okay, good.
On basic studies. So we are thinking about that, submitting good proposals related to the CO2 sequestration. Sir.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. The next one. You can, you can reduce, Dr. Mubarak Ali, you can lower down your hand. There is Aishwarya. She's muted.
Yeah. Aishwarya, can you unmute yourself and then speak?
Or you can ask Dr. Jocelyn.
I think they have left.
No, they are muted. No, that is a problem. Both of them are muted. Aishwarya and Dr. Jocelyn. I don't.
Yeah, somebody else can ask the question till they come back.
Okay. See, you have to answer. At the end of the lecture, Professor Miranda said that you have to have a test. So it's better you ask some questions so that you are familiar with the topic. Okay. At least I'm glad that somebody.
Anybody else has any question? Uma. Yes, Uma. Speak a little louder, Ma.
Yes, can you speak?
Can't hear you, Dr. Uma. Anybody else? I think you're not able to connect too good.
There is one sure. There is Jocelyn Harapan. She has raised her hand.
So is there anyone else who's interested in asking questions?
Yeah, they must be hungry.
So I think if you did listen to Dr. Sukumar's talk, you would see that he had somebody haiku.
Yes. Hi, sir. So what is the procedure for improving the selectivity, sir? Is there any interaction?
Selectivity.
Can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I am Dr. Hikku from Chettinad Academy of Research and Education. Basically, I am a nanotechnologist.
It's in Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, from Chennai.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, so I do not know. I have been reading these CO2 absorption or adsorption papers where there is no what information regarding how this CO2 is adsorbed over this porous material. What facilitates? What is the interaction between this adsorbing material and this CO2?
There are very few papers available on adsorption and absorption. For instance, if you take a monoethanol amine, it is a chemisorption. So if you use piperazine, it's a promoter, and if you use carbonic anhydrase, it's also a catalyst. It's an enzyme, so it increases the absorption capacity, kinetics. So there are many ways of improving absorption, and likewise you can use sorbents with surface modification, like amine based surface modified zeolites, and along with some promoters like piperazine or carbonic anhydrase. There are many papers available, and all your targeting is improve its capacity, reduce its desorption efficiency. So that is the objective. Can I, per kilogram of material, what is the maximum CO2 that can be adsorbed or absorbed? And two, for the desorption, what is the energy I have to consume per kilogram of desorption? What is the energy? So these are the two parameters which are usually studied in these. Then third is kinetics. How quickly you can do it, because if it the cycle, the material cycling process, how many cycles it can go through? 1,000 cycles or 10 cycles? 10 cycles means the material is going to be very expensive. If it can go through 1,000 cycles, the material is pretty good, so I can use it for a long time. So these are the parameters you have to see. There are good literatures available, and you should look, and hundreds, literally hundreds. If you put this for absorption, you'll get hundreds. You look at only last 5 years papers. Don't worry about old ones. Okay? Thanks for your question. So we have Vadivel Raja.
Vadivel Raja, sir, you'd like to ask a question?
Unmute and ask.
You have to unmute.
Dr. Vadivel Raja, you have to unmute and ask your question.
I think he's left.
Okay. Connectivity is the main problem.
Yes. Can the others mute themselves, please? If there are no other questions, then maybe we can thank Dr. Sukumar Devota for sparing his precious time, because he's still actively involved in a lot of work. Just to brief about what he had talked, I think if you listen carefully, you would see that he gave us a wide spectrum for all the engineers. It need not have necessarily been a chemical engineer. All engineers who are interested in carbon dioxide capture, there was something for all of them. If you're a civil engineer, he looked at how you could use the sewage to capture the carbon dioxide. If you're a biotechnologist, how to use the algae. If you're an electrochemical person, you could use chemical techniques, of course, chemical engineering, and so on. So he had given a spectrum of where people could work and how you had to go about, though maybe the whole process we would not be able to develop. So I thank you very much, sir, for giving us such a lucid and wide spectrum of information in your talk. I thank you once again for sparing so much of your time and enlightening most of the people who have joined here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think the feedback form for this session will be sent to you shortly, because you have to fill that form and send it back to me. I think a few of you, sir, you can leave if you're done. I mean, if you have anything else to do. A lot of you asked for attendance. I'm using Teams, so I can download the attendance directly from the Teams. I'll know when you are leaving and entering. Also, all those information comes along with the Teams. Okay, and number of you have sent me message saying that you're still not able to join the Teams. You can call me now that the session is over, and maybe we can help you out as to how to join back. For the others, we will close for lunch, and the next session by Dr. Ardhanarishwaran, professor from NIT, will be at 2:30. So if you have any questions for me, you can raise them. Otherwise, we can close for lunch. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, we can. I just came to know that a number of you had used the chat box for asking your questions. I'm sorry that we did not answer your questions if you had asked questions in the chat box. But yes, the next session we are on the same link. All throughout this week, we are going to use the same link. So kindly come in a little in advance so that I'll be able to make all of you enter in time. And a lot of number of you came very late. I know you had difficulty in joining the session. So those who still have problems, or I know they'll not be able to hear me here, but if you have friends who are still having difficulty, kindly let me know. Okay. So attendance comes to me directly. I can download from the team. So I'll download and I have the attendance. But kindly answer the feedback because that is also will be taken as attendance in case you have not been, you had some issues with your connectivity. Is it okay? No, we are sending the feedback in the mail. Okay, we'll send it in the mail so that you can just answer it. It's a Google form, so you can answer it and upload it in the mail itself.